Hey everyone, and welcome to the 1000th episode of Chef AJ Live. I am so excited and I'm so happy that you're here. Before we get into the interview with our very special guest, Rich Roll, I want to first of all thank everyone who watches the show, either live or in the replay, and to give you a little bit of history about the show in case this is the first time you've seen me. My name is Chef AJ. I have been following a plant-exclusive diet for nearly 45 years, and I never intended to have a YouTube show, let alone a daily YouTube show, let alone a multiple-time daily YouTube show. So let's just give you a little bit of history, and then we'll get into the interview with Rich Roll. And if you stay till the end, I will be announcing the rules of the contest that will take place over the next 10 days, where you can win a free NutraMilk machine. It is a fabulous machine. It's one of my top 3 favorite kitchen appliances. You can use it to make plant milks that have no residue, or in other words, they're zero waste. And there are many videos on this channel where you can see how I use it, but it also makes nut butters in minutes. It can be used as a food processor, a blender, and it's just a fabulous machine. And thank you so much to the NutraMilk company and to Carolyn Chen for generously donating a NutraMilk machine to one lucky winner. We don't know who that is yet, but I'm sure we'll announce it on the show. Please consider signing up to be on my mailing list, which is chefaj.com, because in case you missed the rules today, we're going to send it out tomorrow with the replay so that can be very specific and you know what to do. And I'd appreciate that. Also, if you're new and not a subscriber, welcome, and please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and maybe even hitting that notification bell, because then you'll be notified when I go live. So, of course, Bailey wants to come up now. Somebody actually recognized me in my new community. Not me. They recognized Bailey. Okay, you can come up. You can come up. Okay, thank everybody for watching the show. Now, this show is actually really a YouTube show, but I stream it in multiple places, including many Facebook groups, some that I'm a private member Facebook group of. So I stream it multiple places, including Twitter, Facebook, but it's a YouTube show. And I say that because while I appreciate if you watch on Facebook and Twitter, I would ask you to consider watching on YouTube. The reason is we created something known as a Zoomunity, a community on Zoom, where most of the people watch there. And there is an active chat that if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, you just can't see all the wonderful comments. People have forged friendships in person and virtual because of being in the Zoomunity. So consider, if you are watching on Facebook, going over to YouTube, because when we have guests doing recipes, you always go, where's the recipe? Well, you can see it on YouTube. You can't see it on Facebook. Thank you so much for all your wonderful congratulations. I appreciate that. So consider watching on YouTube. Okay, so just a really brief history. I know you want the man of the hour, Rich Roll. And by the way, this is a recorded interview. Why? Because I couldn't tell when the 1000th episode would occur. You see, I do my show live every day at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Now, sometimes we have to do it a little bit earlier. Maybe the guest lives in another country, or in the case of Dr. McDougall, they want to start earlier, but it's generally at 11 a.m. But when a publisher contacts me or somebody has a new book and they have to get on because there is a 4 to 6 month wait to get the 11 o'clock slot, I often do a bonus show, usually at 2 p.m. And so that's the reason you may want to consider being on my mailing list or subscribing. And there was a time where I was doing 5 shows a day. That's how I was able to do 1,000 shows in just a little bit over 2 years. So I couldn't tell exactly when the 1000 show would be because sometimes guests do cancel or we have a bonus show, which is why Rich Roll and I did pre-record this interview. But I assure you, if you're watching right now, which is May 20th at around 11:15 Pacific time, I am here live. This is real. I am going to be with you the whole show. I'm going to be with you watching the Rich Roll episode, and then I'm going to come back live. I'll still be monitoring the chat. That's the other thing, Facebook guys, watch on YouTube because you can see I'm always typing. I'm doing 2 shows at once, but I'll come back. We will announce how you can enter and win a free NutraMilk machine. They're worth almost $600. You don't have to live in the United States, but you have to have a United States address for us to ship it to. So I am not the best on screen share, but I will do my best and get Rich Roll up right away. I am so honored that he took the time to talk to me. He's such a wonderful person, just a wonderful human, and easy on the eyes, lady, as you know, and men too. So let me share the screen and get this interview rolling right away. Okay. Charles, can you tell me if I did it right? I think I did. Let's see if I can make it bigger. Yes, I did. There we go. Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. I started broadcasting this show live and daily at least once a day on March 20th, 2022, never dreaming that I'd ever get to episode 1000. When I asked who would you most like to see on this landmark episode, it was pretty much unanimous. He is a legend in the plant-based world, in the podcasting world. He arguably has one of the most successful and one of the best podcasts that anyone has ever listened to. And he's just a wonderful person, a wonderful human being, an author, an athlete, and I could call him a friend, I think, and his name is Rich Roll. And thank you so much for doing this, Rich. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are.
My heart is aflutter. AJ, that was such a beautiful introduction. I will send you a check in the mail, and now you are officially hired to follow me around and introduce me wherever I go.
I would love to, because it's sincere. I mean, people do love you. And actually, one of my questions is, you know, not that I had to research you, because I know you, and most people I think that follow me know your story of recovery and your athleticism, but there's really nothing bad out there about you. Like, you get no bad. People love you. I mean, the women love you because you're hot and you're eloquent. I mean, you're like a movie star, at least in the plant-based. I mean, in every world, but you are a rock star.
I mean, let me disabuse you of whatever, identity is being projected upon me, because I'm a highly flawed person who, left to my own devices is pretty grumpy. And I've got, a wake of people who would say otherwise about, like,
well, you come on,
it's like, I try, I try, and I'm on this, growth curve like everybody else, doing the best that I can, but I'm certainly very far from perfect. And I mess up more than I get it right. So I just want to correct the record a little bit on that.
But what's really cool about you is it seems like whatever you touch turns to gold. I mean, even if when you were an attorney, I don't know how successful you were, but the fact that you were able to go to law school, a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that. And then when you decided to become an ultra athlete, you were successful in that. And your podcast was that exploded. Did you ever expect it to be as successful as it is?
Well, it's interesting that that's the way you characterize it, because my lived experience is very different. Like, I was very unhappy as a lawyer. I was somebody who could excel academically through sheer force of will. And really, I learned early on as a swimmer that whatever talent I lacked, I could sort of make up for by outworking the next person. And I kind of applied that for many, many years. And I think that was responsible for me being able to kind of make my way in the world. But, it also led me down some pretty dark paths and in a career that, made me, really unhappy. And also, the idea that the podcast is, kind of this like crazy viral sensation is certainly not the way that it worked. Like, I did it for years without making any money. I couldn't pay our bills. We had our cars repossessed and our garbage cans taken away. Like, we went through some real financial hardship, and it was unclear that we would ever be able to be financially viable or sustainable. And I had a lot of friends and colleagues who were telling me that I was chasing the wrong thing and being crazy, but I believed in what I was doing. And I've been doing the podcast for 10 years, so there's never been like some kind of crazy out of the blue spike. It's just been showing up for it. And this is like my recipe for success in everything that I do. It's just like I keep showing up for it. I just keep moving forward. I keep trying to work hard and do the best that I can, and trust in the universe. And a decade later, now it's like, oh, people are like, oh, I hear about your podcast everywhere I go. But like that's the product of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over many, many, many years to get here.
So in other people's eyes, you were an overnight success, but what you're saying is it took time and effort to build what you have done.
100%. I mean, I don't think there is any overnight success. It's like, it may seem that way, or if you Google me, it kind of looks like everything fell into place, but no, I mean, I've worked very hard for a very long period of time. And over that 10-year period, like, I've never missed a week of uploading a podcast, and I've made a ton of mistakes along the way and learned a lot, and it's just grown very, very gradually and organically.
Do you really enjoy being a podcaster?
I do, and I think at 10 years in, and you doing this thing every day, like 1,000 episodes, like I'm curious, what your relationship is to the thing, because no matter how much you love it, after a certain period of time, it's like, okay, it becomes kind of a job, right? So then the challenge becomes, how do I stay enthusiastic about it? How do I remain, really energetic about what I'm doing? Because if I don't have that, the show's not going to be any good and the whole thing is going to crater. So I've had to learn to let go of my instinct to be a control freak, and I've hired people now, and I've learned to delegate, certain tasks to people that because I used to do everything myself, so that I can free up time. And now I take like a month off every year to recharge and really just, kind of prioritizing in a way that I didn't previously, like my own self-care, so that I can continue to do this for many years and maintain the level of quality and integrity that, I think has made it successful in the first place.
That is a great idea, though. Do you take the same month off every year? Do you go to different places? Are you doing this alone or with your family?
So I've done it three years going now, because before that, I think I worked 7 years straight without any break, like just grinding and grinding and grinding. Cause like I needed to figure out how to basically support my family. I've got 6 people who are dependent on me. And I really inched up against burnout at that point. And I took all of December off and I went to Australia. Part of that was with my family and part of it was solo. And then the past 2 years, because of the pandemic, couldn't travel to anywhere exotic, but I've gone to Hawaii the past 2 years. And those have been solo, like just really quiet. I'm not sharing anything on social media. I'm just, unplugging completely and really just allowing myself to recharge so I can return and be energetic and effervescent. Not at the level that you are, AJ. Nobody has your level of energy, but I aspire to it.
It sounds like you learned to self-care, like balance is what you're saying, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that I hate that word balance. Like
I'm sorry.
I'm the furthest thing from balanced. I'm like a pendulum that just swings from one extreme to the next. And so I like to think of it more as presence. Like whatever I'm doing, I try to bring my full presence to. And then, I have obviously many buckets of things that are important to me. So then I have to come out of that and then let the pendulum swing over to the other area that needs attention. So yeah, I would say if you looked at my life over the course of a year, it looks balanced, but on a weekly or daily basis, it probably looks, fairly out of balance.
Well, it's funny you mentioned pendulum, because one of the reasons I resonate with you so much is because I really believe you truly understand addiction, having lived it. And that's kind of what addiction is. You're either here or you're here. There's kind of no here.
Yeah. And recovery is about being okay in the middle, which is a very uncomfortable place for the recovering addict. And I've gotten better at that, but I also have figured out how to, leverage those wider pendulum swings and use them for, positive outcomes as opposed to self-destructive ones.
One thing I've heard you say is addiction and recovery are 2 very different processes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, for somebody who is an addict, and it's hard for somebody to relate to what that lived experience is if you're not an addict, but if you are, it's an experience of being incredibly intolerant of any level of emotional discomfort and a desire and a willingness to do absolutely whatever is necessary to shift your emotional state to not experience whatever that psychic pain is. And, addicts are very creative and crafty at figuring out how to kind of, heal themselves in that unhealthy way. And it works for a while. Otherwise, we wouldn't do it. But then, as you know, it stops working until it becomes, so cataclysmic that, we're compelled to find a newer way. And the process of recovery is a journey towards being okay with not feeling okay, getting comfortable with that discomfort, and developing tools for personal growth that allow you over time to inhabit your own skin without that level of discomfort. And it's not like a snap your fingers thing, and it's not a linear thing. I got sober in 1998, and I don't drink or use, but I have plenty of character defects and erratic behaviors that will sort of fire up if I'm not taking care of myself, if I'm not sleeping well, if I'm not engaged with my recovery, if I'm not calling my sponsor or working the steps or eating right, and just a whole litany of things that I have to do just to be normal and feel okay, like the normal person does without much effort.
What's the opposite of the word defect? Like the opposite of flaw, would you say?
I don't know. It's a good question. What is the opposite of defect?
Because the reason I said that you may have defects, but I think one of the reasons people resonate with you so much is because you show up as who you are, but you also have some really amazing qualities. And I think you're going to agree with me that one of the things you have that I most admire is integrity. And I want to explain why. One of my experiences with you a long time ago, you might not even remember this, but before the pandemic, I used to produce live conferences, and with my husband and producing partners, we had done 19 of them. Our 20th conference was supposed to be in Palm Springs, May of the pandemic year. And I had hired you for one of the conferences, and we didn't pay very much because we really couldn't. We paid like $500 to our speakers, all of them, even like the famous ones, because it was done at a church and we hardly charged to get in, and you lived in the area, so you agreed to speak. And then you had sent me, and we didn't do like they do now, like where you sign a contract and anything like that. It's not how I really like to do business in general and with friends. And you had emailed me that you had gotten a better offer, but a better offer, like a lot better offer, and that you would like to be released, but if I wouldn't, you would understand. And I honor that. And I was like, I was like so touched by that. My husband and I were like, of course, thank you. And then the person whose conference it was very upset, and how dare we do this? But to me, like, that said everything about you. The fact that, of course, I put myself in your position, and I understand people have to make, and I was like, I was happy for you. And so to me, like, that's how I'm always going to remember you, as a person of integrity.
What's so funny about that, I have a vague memory of that. I can't say I remember it.
I have the email, I can show you.
But my mind goes immediately to thinking, well, the real integrous person would have said no to the more money and just said, well, I'm going to go speak at AJ's thing because I committed to that. Like that would be true integrity. But I would characterize what I did as transparent. But I think I was, today I probably would have said no to them because I'm financially doing fine now. I could afford to say no to something and honor my previous commitment. But I think at the time, like, we really needed the money. I was asking permission, basically.
But still, a lot of people, because, we didn't, and then the people were like, oh, we got to get everybody to sign. But a lot of people would have just sent me, listen, I worked with a lot of people, they would have just said, sorry, better off. You know what I'm saying? So to me, I still consider that you really did take the high road. And who knows what would have happened if I said, well, you better show up. But to me, that said a lot about you. Because I remember I was on the Tonight Show a long time ago, and I was bumped several times, which I loved being bumped because you got paid $1,500, and like in the 80s, $1,500 was, it's still kind of a lot of money today for only showing up. And I was bumped so many times, I eventually got on, but I remember when they called me and they said, can you make it tonight? And I said, no, because I committed to taking my uncle to chemotherapy. And most people, because I felt like if it was meant to be, they were going to ask me again. You know what I mean? But I just felt like but see, I don't know, but I think you're great. So don't worry about it. You did the right thing. And I'm glad you were able, I'd love to know what that job was, though, because our jobs are really fun. If we ever get a chance to work together, we try to make our speakers just feel very welcome and loved and all that kind of stuff.
I have no doubt, AJ.
Yeah. So let's talk about your podcast. How many episodes have you done so far?
I think we've done 670 something, 676 or something like that at this point. Yeah.
You're probably not thinking about it yet, but who do you want for your 1,000th guest?
Oh man, that's like, I'm like focused on like what's happening tomorrow. Yeah, I get asked that question a lot, like who's the ultimate guest, who's the bucket list person. And, I think it's fun to throw names out like, oh, what would it be like if Barack Obama, wanted to do it, or somebody like that. And of course that would be that would be really cool. But I have to say, like, I don't really think of it in those terms, because when I reflect back over the many years on the guests that have been most meaningful to me personally, it is fun, you know, to talk to Russell Brand or Edward Norton or people like that, Matthew McConaughey. But honestly, the ones that really move the needle for me are people that I discover and find, and who have stories that I think are deserving of being broadcast to more people. Like, I'm like, why doesn't everybody know about this person and what they have to say? And when I have the opportunity to provide that service for somebody, it's just really, and then to see the audience respond so positively to it, that's the best, right? So I had a guy on called John McAvoy, who was like a lifelong bank robber young man who was serving a life sentence and wasn't going to get parole, and figured out a way to get parole and got out and became a professional Ironman triathlete and an advocate for prison reform. And he's the most compelling storyteller. And in the UK, people sort of know who he is, but in the United States, nobody did. And like, I was like, here you go, like, check this guy out. And it was like unbelievable. And I would characterize Josh LaJohny as somebody like that too. He was somebody who just tweeted me, and I thought, this guy's got an incredible story. He's just an average, you know, private citizen living in southern Louisiana, and he's got this incredible, you know him, right?
I love him. Oh my, he makes me cry every time.
He's, you know, he just wears his heart on his sleeve. He's so charming, and his story is so inspirational. And, you know, I was the first person who, you know, gave him a shot at sharing his story, which he did. And I was able to then encourage him to continue to do that, and to see him go on and, you know, show up at events that we've both been at and get up on stage and share his story and be on the Today Show and on the cover of Runner's World magazine. Like, that's just, you know, like, it doesn't get any better than that.
Well, right before we started talking, we talked about our mutual friend, Dr. Alan Goldhammer, and his episode over 2.3 million exploded. And I mean, what you did for his career was just unparalleled in his life.
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. Like, that's what happens on YouTube. Like, every once in a while, like, the algorithm gods smile on a certain video and it just goes haywire. I wish I could reverse engineer how that works. I don't, you know, I have no idea how that works. But yeah, the podcast that I did with Alan, you know, just caught fire and people loved it, and it continues to get crazy views. And he's another person who I felt was very deserving of more attention than he was getting. And you had introduced us. And it was a pleasure talking to him. And yeah, and now he, like, you know, his business is thriving, and he, you know, he never has an open bed, you know, and that's cool, right? Like, so it's more than just who would be cool to talk to. It's like, what is the real world impact of what you're doing, you know? And I think, you know, as part and parcel of that, I made a decision very early on with my show that I wanted to cast a wide net and be a welcome mat for the broadest audience possible, to not just be vegan all the time or just talk about plant-based stuff, because I knew over time that would create an audience that was only interested in that, or that was already converted. And so now when I talk about plant-based stuff, it's almost like a Trojan horse, because I've developed a lot of trust through having all different kinds of people on, that when I do bring on somebody to have that conversation, there's a level of receptivity that I think I've earned that makes it more potent and impactful to the audience.
That is very good advice for me, because when I branch out and have non-vegan people on, you know, it's a little bit different though, because I'm doing my show live. This has obviously been pre-recorded because we don't know exactly when episode 1000 is happening. So I'm doing it this way because I couldn't expect you to just be available at a moment's notice. But because we're doing it live, we also have this chat feature, and it's all people care about. Like, they could be talking about something that has nothing to do with health. Maybe they made an umbrella. That I'm just doing that. Well, what do they eat? Are they vegan? You know, and it's like, I'm wearing my vegan shirt today. But the thing is I love when I interview people that are like, say, authors, and it doesn't really matter with what they're talking about, whether they're vegan or not. Not really, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, people are multifaceted, and I eat a plant-based diet and live a vegan lifestyle, but I'm interested in other things as well. And I think, you know, one thing I've noticed is that people who go vegan or go plant-based and experience this incredible, reversal in their health and start to, experience life differently, become great, enthusiastic ambassadors for the movement. But I think it's important to always remember that there is more growth out there across mind, body, spirit. And you don't want to just get stuck like, okay, I'm the plant-based person and now I've arrested my growth and development because I'm so focused on this. Like, you have to broaden your perspective and open yourself up to other areas where you could have a similar type of epiphany.
I agree. That's kind of what I did with the weight loss space. I feel like Adam West and Batman, and it's like, hey, I do other things. I don't just talk about weight loss all the time. I'm a chef.
Yeah.
I'm things like that.
A comedian.
I am a would-be comedian. The one good thing about the pandemic is I was able to because I had left LA, so I couldn't be doing my classes. So I've been able to do a lot of stand-up and improv on Zoom. So yes, I am a comedian at heart. How much time do you spend preparing for each interview, or does it depend? For example, if a guest doesn't have a book, obviously you don't have to read it, but do you spend a lot of time preparing for each guest?
Yeah, a tremendous amount of time. I think people really underestimate how much time and energy is required to kind of do what I do and execute at the level that we're executing. I have a whole team of people. I've got video editors and audio engineers and graphic designers. That I've got this studio space now. We've got a 2,000 square foot warehouse that's a professional studio. So I have a lot of help, but when it comes to preparing for the guests, it's going to vary depending upon the person. Like, if it's a friend of mine and I know them well, like, I don't have to do a ton of prep. But I would say on average, it's probably 6 to 8 hours. Particularly, I have a lot of authors who come on when their book is coming out. So I want to read the book and do as much research as I possibly can before they arrive. So yeah, that's a pretty intensive process.
I believe you, because when I have an author on, I thank God for Audible is all I can say, because I can speed it up. But I remember the most I've ever spent was 12 hours for one.
Wow.
We had a book, and I didn't want to look like a dum-dum when not like if I hadn't read the book, and it was kind of a complicated book. So yeah, I know we can tell you're really well prepared. Are most of your guests now people that are contacting you because they have books, or do you still look for people that you want to invite?
It's really an intuition-based thing. Yes, I'm on the receiving end of probably 20 to 30 pitches a day, because I get on, my email ends up on, publicist lists. And so I get all the book galleys before they come out. So we're just, we get stacks of books in the mail every day. And I would say that on average, it's pretty rare that one of those pitches translates into a guest. Every once in a while it does, like somebody's got a book coming out, and I don't generally have the luxury of being able to listen to it on Audible, because they want to record these podcasts before the book is available. So the audiobook isn't out yet. So it's like, okay, you got to read the book.
Oh my God. I didn't take that into consideration. Yeah. That would be really hard for me.
Yeah. And there's no synopses online or anything like that. So yeah, every once in a while it is from an incoming pitch from one of the publishing houses, but more often than not, it's just somebody I stumble across, or I discover, or somebody referred to me, or somebody that I've been seeking out for a long time. Those are the people that end up on the show. I'm online, I'm paying attention. I'm always looking for people that interest me, and I've got a spreadsheet, and I'm always casting my line out there. And, at any given moment, there's probably 10 or 15 guests that I'm babysitting. And because I only do in person, sometimes it takes, years before our schedules align and they can come to Los Angeles and do it with me in person. What's been interesting about the pandemic, when everything became online, I tried to do some Zoom stuff, and it's for what I do, for me to be the best at what I do, it's very difficult for me to do that digitally. I've just discovered, and a lot of people had the opposite experience. They're like, I love Zoom, I can have my notes up in front of me, and whatever. Just for me, it's not great. But now everybody just assumes that it's going to be a Zoom call. And when I'm like, no, I only do in person, it's almost like an affront. They're like, what? You want to do it what? Wait, I have to come to your place?
Oh my God, that would be like an honor. Have you ever gotten nervous interviewing anybody? Was there anybody that made you nervous?
I get nervous for every interview.
Yeah.
I still get nervous for every single one. I put a lot of pressure on myself. I want it to be the best experience possible. And, those nerves aren't always great, because if you're nervous, it's harder to be present. And certainly, yeah, it's like you're going to speak to, some famous person. It is nerve wracking. But I've been doing it so long. I know like that, I've done my, all my reps. So, I've never had a moment in a podcast where like I had to freak out or anything like that. They all end up, look, some are going to be better than others. And they're not all going to be home runs, of course. But I think just through experience, the nerves are like, okay, you're ready, you're excited, you want it to be great, and then you kind of settle into it as you know.
Any bloopers you can share with us that maybe didn't make it, like anything funny ever happened during a podcast that you can remember?
Oh man. Well, I've had a couple that like just didn't go well and I didn't air them, so that's always like a challenge because you don't want to disappoint the guest, but your allegiance is to the audience. And it's like, if it doesn't rise to the level of being helpful enough for them, like I don't want to, burden people and tell them that they should listen or watch something that I don't think, lives up to what I thought it could be. And, like there's always like, a chair broke or like somebody's got to go to the bathroom or something like that. And I give all my guests, approval rights. I say, like, if there's something that you said that you want cut out, or you can call me tomorrow and say, I wish I hadn't said that thing. I'm happy to snip stuff out. Like, I'm not trying to play gotcha with anyone. I'm trying to like show them in their best light.
Yeah, and I do the same thing. I don't have the luxury to edit because it's a live show, but so far we haven't had anything that was needing to be taken out. But I do. That's my feeling. Like, if I want to make my guests look good and I want to be kind to them and not be, a contrarian or, because that's not who I am. But also that's why I think almost every, I wonder if you have this too, almost every guest that comes on my show asks to come back again. And I usually will rebook them in a few months, but then like you, I've got 4 to 6 months of people waiting for a slot. Yeah.
It gets tricky because people will say, hey, I want to come on the show. And you're like, they're your friend, or, you want to be nice, but it's like, I don't know if it's right. And that becomes like awkward and challenging, especially as the show has gotten larger.
Yeah, that is hard. That is, I can imagine, because I have so many people, that's what they aspire to do, is be on the Ritual podcast. So you can be on mine, because it's not quite as, I got a lot more slots.
Well, you do it every day. You got like way more availability than me, but I look at it like I have 52 slots for the year. Like, who are the best 52 people? Like, or I have, 25 left for the year. Like that puts it in a different like lens when you think of it that way.
Absolutely. You had mentioned the YouTube algorithm, which nobody really can figure out. So you never know right away if something is going to have a lot of views versus fewer views. But do you ever have like a gut feeling like, wow, this one was really good, and then it did take off, or like, I don't get it, this was my favorite and nobody watched?
Yeah, it seems to be relatively haphazard. I would say that on my channel, because look, I mean, 95% of my audience is still audio only. So the YouTube part of what I do is still actually a very, very small piece of the puzzle. But there have been outlier videos that have gone nuts. Alan Goldhammer's, we did one with Dr. Andrew Huberman, who's a neuroscientist from Stanford. That has over 10 million views right now, which is just like crazy. But I've done ones that I thought were just fantastic conversations that just went nowhere, so you just have to keep putting it out there. And I think it's important, and there's a balance between, hey, what's the thumbnail photo going to look like, and what's the crazy title that's going to get people to click. But ultimately, like, I have to sleep at night. And you mentioned integrity earlier. Like, I'm a 55-year-old man. Like, am I going to have, so we played around with that a little bit, but ultimately I think we're pulling back from that. And I just have to trust that, like, over time, the people who need to see it are going to see it, and to let go of, it's like a recovery thing too. Like, I have no control over that. Like, I can try to craft the right image, or, I'll do all the things that you're supposed to do to attract attention, but ultimately, like, it's out of my hands.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it. if somebody wanted to start a podcast, what advice would you give them?
A couple things. I mean, I think it's still, despite what people might presume, early days in podcasting. I think there's a lot of people who are like, it's too late. There's too many podcasts. And I think it's kind of true. Like, there are a lot out there, and it is very different. Like, I benefit from having started back in the day when it wasn't cool to have a podcast and nobody was starting podcasts, and was able to kind of establish myself and hold on to that as more people moved in. So, you know, what I do would be very difficult to start now. So I think it is early days though, and this medium is only going to continue to grow. And I think the more voices that are available on it, the better. And I think everybody has their own unique voice and thing to say. So I always encourage people to start podcasts who are interested in doing it. But I would say that you do have to be a little bit more intentional about what you're doing. Like, what is it that's going to be unique? Like, what is the value proposition of what you're doing? Like, are you doing, if you're just going to have conversations with people, I think it's important to understand that you're probably going to have to narrow it a little bit or be more specific, perhaps even niche, in order to attract somebody's attention. Unless you're like, you already are a huge celebrity and you have some kind of name recognition, it's harder to break out. And so, second to that, I would say, don't do it if you're looking to make money or turn it into a profession. That's a long road and will take a very long time. And I'm not saying that it's not possible. It's certainly possible. But I think people enter it with expectations that they're going to start banking all kinds of ad revenue and like making a lot of money. And it just doesn't work that way. So go into it because you love it, because you feel a pull towards the medium and you feel like you have something to contribute and offer and to say. And, you know, if you go into it with that mindset and willing to work, because like I said earlier, it is a lot more work than I think people realize, then you will be successful because it will be nourishing to your soul, which is what I found. And like I said, I did it for a long time before it ever became something that could be a vocation. And I did it because I loved it, and I knew that people who were listening to it were getting value from it.
That's good advice, to not do things for the money or just for the money. Are there other mediums or things you aspire to, like a television show, a film career, anything else you want to do?
I have projects that I'm working on, certainly things that I want to express and explore, whether it's through documentaries or television projects and the like. But, you know, people, AJ, ask me all the time, like, what's the big vision? Like, what are you working towards? And I really don't think in those terms. Like, I'm very gratified and fulfilled doing what I'm doing now. And honestly, like, if this is it, and I don't get one more subscriber and it just is what it is, like, I'm good. Like, it's so gratifying and fulfilling and nourishing. And, you know, I'm able to do this thing that I love, that I feel like I've developed some skill at. People seem to be enjoying it. I can support my family doing it. Like, that's pretty freaking great. Like, you know, I used to be really unhappy with what I was doing and thought that I would never find a way to you know, have a career that I would actually enjoy. So I'm just grateful. And yeah, like, I have stuff I want to do, and whether that happens or not, it's all bonus.
Yeah, it's like that. I read a book once called "Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow." And that's sort of like what's happened to you. How important is veganism in your life?
It's super important. Like I said, it's not the only thing that I care about, but I'm very passionate about it. It's really the thing that changed my life and catalyzed this new life that I have. And, you know, the more that I learn about it and the longer that I've been doing it, the more I think prescient it is, or I should say urgent it is, given the ticking clock on our environment and the increasing dependence that we have on factory farming to feed the world. You know, we're facing, you know, very real existential threats to the future of humanity and the planet. And when you've lived as long as I have and you have on a plant-based diet, and realize that not only can you survive, you can actually thrive without eating these products that are so harmful to the world that we share and inhabit, you want to evangelize it to other people. And the way that you do that, I think, is tricky and depends upon your personality traits. But I'm very passionate about it. You know, I think the fact that we have a system that results in the suffering of billions and billions of animals every year is just horrific and unbelievable. I think we'll all look back on this many decades from now, and young people will say, I can't believe that's how you provided food to people. The fact that, you know, the clothes that we wear in so many consumer products are reliant on animals to be created seems preposterous in 2022. And so I think it's really important that people who live this lifestyle and have a voice in an audience to use that platform to espouse the virtues and the values of living this way. But you have to do it in a way that it can be well received. And I think, you know, you have a very particular way that you advocate, as do I. Earthling Ed has a very different way of doing it. Like, everybody has to figure out like what their lane is, and we need all of those voices at the table.
I agree with you that we need all of the voices. How do we get all the voices to get along? I'm so tired of the infighting, like especially like over oil. Really? I mean, there's so many other things we could be fighting about.
Yeah, I mean, it's dispiriting, all of the squabbling amidst the vegan community. And I really don't engage with that. I just find it to be completely counterproductive. You know, I'm worried or focused on, you know, the guy who is, you know, going to Taco Bell on his way to work and getting a big gulp and hitting Jack in the Box on the way home. Like, let's talk about the big problems that we can face. And, you know, not get caught up in the minutia and the details that, quite frankly, the manner in which that discourse is managed ultimately just ends up putting off people who might otherwise be receptive to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, I agree. Have you ever gotten into an argument with one of your guests? I know you can edit, but has that ever happened?
Never gotten into an argument. I've been a guest on podcasts where people try to provoke me, but I don't think I've never had an argument with somebody who's been a guest on my show. I mean, I will challenge them. I don't think I'm doing my job if I don't push back a little bit, but I do it in a graceful way and always with like respect. So it's never devolved into anything like, you know, salacious or anything like that.
You never had to hit anybody, in other words.
No.
Yeah. So I know that you're humble. So this question might make you uncomfortable because you said at the beginning, I'm flawed, I'm cranky, etc. But you have to admit that a lot of people do like you and resonate with you. What quality do you think it is that they're connecting with?
I think it's compassion and empathy. I think that's a trait that I have that comes across in the podcast, and maybe that's why I've never gotten into a fight. Like, I try to really empathize with the person that I'm speaking to. I think I'm a very good listener, which is an undervalued skill, and I think people can feel that sensitivity or compassion that I'm trying to bring to the experiences that I'm sharing. And it's tricky right now. You go online and everyone's yelling at each other, and and everybody's looking at everything from a very binary perspective, and it's all about what tribe you're identifying with and signaling to. And there is no room for nuance anymore. And I think what I offer is an opportunity to have a nuanced conversation. I think people are starving for that. And whether they consciously recognize it or not, it taps into something primal about what it means to be human, which is that ancestral need to sit across the campfire and share stories and relate to each other as human beings.
I've noticed as your show evolved over the years, it kept getting longer. Is that because you find you really just can't get everything you want to have said in 1 hour anymore?
I don't know if it's gotten longer. I think they've always been between 90 minutes and 3 hours. And, every guest is different. Like the conversation is as long as it needs to be. I don't try to make them long on purpose. And I've had guests on where it's like, we did an hour and like, that's pretty, I think we did what we needed to do. And then some, they just require a longer period of time. So it's really contingent upon the type of conversation and who I'm speaking with.
Are there particular topics you are just personally more interested in exploring?
Of course, I think, and it's also temporal. It's like, what am I going through now that I need help with? So I just had a conversation yesterday with a guy called Chip Conley, who is a very successful entrepreneur as a hotelier and was instrumental in helping build Airbnb. And now he's started this thing called the Modern Elder Academy, where he's teaching people in the middle phases of their life how to transition out of their careers and continue to find meaning in different ways. And he's created this school, and like, that's super interesting to me as a 55-year-old person who knows a lot of people who are contemplating like what their next chapter of life is going to look like. So would I have had that conversation 5 or 10 years ago? Probably not. But right now, that's top of mind for me. So anything relating to personal growth is always going to be an interest of mine, and that comes in many shapes and forms. It could be spiritual growth. It could be talking with psychiatrists and psychologists. It's parenting. It's how to be a present partner in my marriage, like all of those kinds of things. But the bread and butter has always been like plant-based doctors and nutritionists and athletes and things like that. Although I've spoken to most of them at this point, so it's less interesting to me because I feel like I've had every conversation that I can have on that. And that doesn't mean that I won't continue to do that because the audience is growing, and I can't presume that they've listened to every episode. They certainly haven't. So I'll continue to do that. But because I'm so well versed in that subject matter, like there's not as much personal growth opportunity for me. And I feel like the show is at its best when I'm learning as the audience is learning, like as a stand-in for the audience member.
Is there anybody in the plant-based space that hasn't been on that you've wanted on?
Oh, there's plenty of people. I mean, I still haven't gotten Doug Lyle on, like there's lots of people that, I could chase down. I haven't had Caldwell Esselstyn on. I haven't had some of the legends. There's always more people, and there's new people coming up, and it's great to, see the younger doctors, the next generation of the people who are inheriting the mantle that was, created by all the legends that are, friends of yours and I's, like Dr. Will Bolshewitz, the gut biome guy, there's plenty of people like that. So that's always like exciting as well.
Would you like me to try to deliver any of those guests to you?
I'll hit you up afterwards. I could probably make a list for you. Yeah.
I'm pretty good at getting people to do things. So, and in a nice way, of course.
They got to come to Los Angeles though.
No, they will. They don't. I think some of them are just nervous.
No.
I think so.
I create a very welcome, friendly environment here.
No, that is so true. I remember the day I was on your podcast, I ran out of gas and it was like, I got to get here. I don't know. I was pretty nervous though.
I would have waited for you, AJ, no matter how long it took.
You're so wonderful. Do you ever tend to remember certain guests like, for instance, at 1,000 episodes, I don't remember every guest off the top of my head, but I remember my youngest guest, who was a 1-year-old who did a cooking demo, and a 100-year-old. Do you remember any extremes? Like, who was your youngest guest? Who was your oldest guest?
I don't remember I haven't had anybody super young on the show, but I did earlier this week do a podcast with Mike Fremont, who's 100. Do you know Mike?
I don't, but I'm having Deborah Saki on soon, right after she turns 100.
Oh, I had Deborah on. I had her on years and years ago. She was amazing. She probably was my oldest until Mike, but Mike has been plant-based for 30 years. He went whole food plant-based in the wake of a colon cancer diagnosis, has been plant-based ever since, and he's broken all of these age group marathoning records. He sets the world record for fastest 90-year-old to run a marathon, and he's 100. He's 100 years old. So
is that a fairly recent one?
We just recorded it this week, so it
So
won't go for a little
That's
while.
why I haven't, that's why I'm not familiar, but I
Yeah.
haven't heard it yet. Okay, very
Mhm.
good. Hey, one of the things I want to talk about is that you sleep in a tent. You don't get cold outside. You don't worry about critters, because I live in the desert and there's scorpions. I'm not
Yeah.
sleeping outside.
I love it. It's the greatest. So now, yeah, for like maybe 3.5 years, I've been sleeping outside in the tent. It started just because whenever I would sleep outside, I just had a much better, more restful night of slumber. And it just kind of built from there. For years, I would have, just a little like camping tent. But I recently upgraded. I have like a full glamping tent now in our backyard, like a really nice thick canvas one. And I love the cold air at night. I just get tons of blankets. I sleep under like a gravity blanket, and I just sleep so much better. It just really agrees with me. So yeah.
You sleep in a sleeping bag. You use a pillow, or your pets?
No, I have a bed. I have a legit bed, and then I have a bunch of blankets that I can layer up, and depending upon how cold it is. I've never not slept in it because it was too cold. And look, we live in Los Angeles. I don't live in Boston, so I wouldn't be doing it then. But it goes down into like the mid to high 30s in the winter. I come out and there's frost, and those are some of the best nights of sleep that I have. Like I just get a ton of blankets, and it's awesome.
That's incredible. Do you get a lot of people wanting you to sponsor their products? Not necessarily have them on the show, which is a legitimate sponsor, but like just, you know what I'm saying? They want to send you a piece of equipment or whatever to have you wear it or show it or things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of DMs and emails, people wanting to send me free stuff. I can't do it. Like I'm trying to live I have sponsors that I work with and brand partnerships, but I take those relationships very seriously and say no to almost all of them and only choose the ones that are truly in alignment and where I think I can bring value to that brand. But I don't like to get free stuff in the mail. Nothing's free. Like you get it and then you'll get a follow-up email a week later. Did you like it? Can you tell? And it's like, I'm so busy. Like I don't have time for it. And I appreciate it. Like it's cool that they want to share their product with me and most of the stuff is great. But it becomes onerous, I would say, so it's just easier to politely decline.
Well, every guest that comes on my show gets 2 free bottles of vinegar. There are no strings attached. Just so you know, we never contact you again and say, did you like it? Will you order more? Mm-hmm. This is just so you know. So when you
I've heard that before, AJ.
No, it's true because your wife was on, and we really don't. It's just I appreciate people's times, and it's just like a little nicety. Mm-hmm. Just like if you were at my house, I might send you home with some cookies, and it's actually only US only, and it's only the first time. It's hilarious when I get guests that come on more than once, and they're like, where's my vinegar? I'm like, it's a one-time deal, we don't just do it every show, you know what I mean? That's so funny. Do you spend a lot of time on social media, and if so, which ones do you prefer?
Yeah, I mean, my relationship with social media is fraught. Like I'm an addict, so I can easily fall down the black hole of mindless scrolling unless I'm on my game and really intentional about my behavior. So I've tried to really step back and monitor how much time I spend online, but it is part of my like business as well. So yeah, I check Twitter. I like to see what's going on in the world. Like Twitter gives me a good sense of like things I should be paying attention to, like in the immediate moment. And Instagram is cool for seeing my friends, but I use those platforms really to just broadcast the podcast, like post stuff about the show. I don't get into Twitter spats or a lot of back and forth with people as much as I'm tempted to. Every time I end up doing that, I regret it. So I really, tried to just be a broadcaster and like kind of step back from it.
If people want to connect with you, like, because I don't imagine you're doing a lot of in-person events anymore. Maybe you are, but if people really want to connect with you, what's the best thing? Obviously, they should subscribe to your podcast, but is there a place like that if they follow you, they might get a glimpse of the Rich Roll?
Yeah, I mean, I'm easy to find on the internet. Like, obviously, like subscribe to the podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel. But I'm just at Rich Roll on Twitter and Instagram, and so those would probably be the places where you would, be able to see what I'm up to. Twitter is more, kind of like random thoughts, and Instagram is more like clips from the show and announcements when new podcast goes up, or just kind of updates on my training and things like that.
Are you training for anything right now?
I'm meant to be doing a 20-kilometer open water swim race in June. I've had some back problems that I'm getting treatment on right now. So hopefully I'll be able to, sort of survive that, but it's not great right now. I can't run at the moment, so I've just been swimming mostly.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Do you eat differently when you're in training than when you're not? And how big is the variant of individual?
It's, I'll eat more volume. I actually end up eating cleaner and better when I'm training, because there's something about being regimented and goal oriented that kind of brings everything into focus. When I'm not training for anything, that's when it's easier for me to kind of slip. Like, I'm always plant-based, but that's when the Beyond Burger finds its way on my plate and things that I know that I shouldn't be eating. But when I'm training, then I get really much more mindful. And so it's always good for me to have, even if something happens and I can't do this race, just to be kind of having those calendared events on there, just, keeps my life a little bit more on the rails.
Give me an idea of what a training day's worth of food might look like for you. And do you prepare your own food?
Yes and no. I mean, Julie's such an amazing cook, so she usually cooks dinner, and I take care of my food for other parts of the day. But it varies depending on how much I'm training. Like, some days I'll do I do my training in the morning, and I'll just wake up and go train, like, fasted. I don't always eat breakfast. When I'm training really hard and it's day in, day out, I'll have a smoothie that's basically beets, beet greens, kale, spinach, and berries, and maybe some coconut water, hemp seeds, flax seeds, things like that. If I'm super hungry, maybe some gluten-free toast with like almond butter or something like that. Lunch is usually like a big salad. I try to eat relatively light and kind of graze in the middle part of the day, because I have so much work to do. I can't eat like a ton of food and just, kind of be out of it. So I try to keep it light throughout the day. And then dinner is usually my big meal. So lots of lentils, lots of potatoes, sweet potatoes, baked potatoes, and lots of beans, lots of black beans, lots of kidney beans, vegan burritos, things like that, guacamole, salsa, vegetables, spinach, broccoli, it's the standard stuff, but my volume of food will increase more when I'm training.
That's what I love about the plant-based diet.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot.
Yeah.
You own a restaurant though, right? Do you ever eat there?
We don't. We're like a passive investor in a restaurant, so I'm not involved in managing it or anything like that. We're like a minority owner of it, but it's called Joy Cafe in Westlake. It's fantastic and wonderful. It's 100% organic, plant-based, gluten-free. Also, have you been there? You've been there, haven't you?
I have. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So we get, like, at our studio, we order lunch from there pretty much every day. So so for my team, they're pretty much eating Joy every single day.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Yeah. Well, please promote anything else. You have books, you have, I believe, meal plans. Tell us, I would imagine anybody watching this knows you, but once in a while you get somebody that might not have heard of you. What else do you do?
AJ, I'm just here to promote love. I don't need to promote.
All right. But you do have books. You do have books.
I'll say that. Well, I'll say this. We do have a meal planner, meals.richroll.com. It's a really great product, very affordable. I think it's like $1.99 a week or something like that. And it provides access to thousands of plant-based recipes that you can customize. You can put in, like, I don't eat this, and these are the things I like. And it will deliver to you like all the recipes that fit those criteria. And it integrates with Instacart, so it will actually automatically order the groceries you need to prepare those recipes, which will be delivered to you. It's really cool. So there's that. We have a couple cookbooks: the Plant Power Way, the Plant Power Way Italia. We are coming up on the 10th year anniversary of Finding Ultra, so I'm going to be doing some fun kind of giveaways and promotional stuff around that, because like a decade later, the book still sells, which is really gratifying and cool. So that's really a memoir in my story. And then we have these self-published books called Voicing Change. We have 2 volumes of that that are basically coffee table compendiums for the podcast that have essays from some of the guests and from myself, as well as excerpts from some of my favorite conversations with beautiful photography. It's really a great book, especially if you're not familiar with my show. It's a great introduction to what we do, and it's a great gift as well. And all of those things you can find on my website at richroll.com. The self-published Voicing Change books are only available on my website. They're not on Amazon or any other place like that. The other books you can get wherever you buy books.
Well, I do remember even in your cookbooks how beautiful the photography was. Like you have your family just kind of be around the pool. You know, whenever I have any guest on, even if I know them, I Google them just to see what pops up. And I can't find anything negative or bad about you. Why is that? Do you have somebody cleaning it up, or is you just that nobody talks of trash? Because seriously, I mean, people can be mean to vegans. I think women more than men. There's whole YouTube channels devoted to hating on vegans, and some of the wonderful plant-based doctors find their way on them. I found my way in that. Nobody seems to really go after you. I mean that in a good way.
I mean, listen, I have my detractors, AJ. Like, you can read, there's plenty of 1-star reviews of Finding Ultra. You can go there. You can just read through YouTube comments. There's plenty of vitriol there. So I'm not immune from being on the receiving end of people who have a problem with who I am and what I stand for. I just don't engage with that. And, I just continue to just try to be a good person and put high vibe content out there, and all that other stuff I can't really control. But yeah, I'm glad there aren't like hit pieces on me, but I get plenty of messages from people that are unhappy with me.
I'm so surprised, but you just continue to be a light in the world with that, because I know someone right now that's really struggling with wanting to quit because of the attacks on her. So your advice would be to just ignore it. Just ignore it.
But I don't go out, I don't get into arguments with people either. So I don't really invite that either. Like, I'm not trying to rile people up on Twitter, and I'm not seeking controversy. It's really not in my nature to do that. And, there are other vegan advocates who, go online and they take a very hard stand. And so they're basically creating a situation where they're going to attract a lot of that kind of energy. And I always look at it, and I think some people are well suited for that. I'm a pretty thin-skinned person. Like, I don't really want to be in that position. And so I just stand, I think of it as a lighthouse. Like, I stand as a lighthouse. I own my space, and I proudly, stand tall in that. And I just try to emit into the world the message that I want to put out there. And hopefully, and the people who are attracted to it, they come to me. But I'm not courting that kind of if I went on Twitter and made a bunch of controversial statements and videos, then there probably would be a bunch of articles and stuff like that. So it's just it's not really my strength.
Yeah. Well, you're definitely a role model for me. And I'm not that I'm not like Dr. McDougall. Like, I don't want to pick fights, but when somebody's attacking me, there's you have this, at least I have this urge, but I'm going to keep that in my mind. Because one of the things I love about doing daily interviews is I look at it almost like school, and I always go into what one thing am I going to learn today? And I always learn at least one thing from every guest. It's amazing. I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's an amazing scam is what it is, right? Like, you convince these people to come on your show and hold them hostage and ask them all these questions.
I love it. Well, you have been so generous to do this, and really, I couldn't think of anybody I would rather share my 1000th episode with. I just want to ask you, is there anything else you want to say to the audience or to people, whether it's about being plant-based or shining their light, or maybe something that we don't know about you, like that you finger paint or something?
Well, no, I think I would like to close it just by saying that regardless of where you find yourself, we all have things that we're going through, and it's been a very difficult couple of years, and we've really endured a lot. And I think there's a lot of people who are suffering out there, and a lot of people who feel like change is not possible in their lives. And I'm here to tell you that not only is it possible, it's really what you're here to do. You are here to grow. You are here to evolve. There is no stasis. You're either moving towards or away from that person that you aspire to be with every breath that you take and every conversation that you have and every decision that you make. And, you know, you wouldn't be watching this video or listening to this podcast if you didn't have some compulsion inside of yourself to, you know, glean what AJ is trying to teach you and incorporate that into your life. So I always encourage people to begin that process. Like, now is the moment to make that small change, to be kind to yourself, to understand that it's not linear, it's not overnight. None of the changes that I've made in my life took place quickly. They were always slowly. And to just begin, because if you do begin that process and create a little bit of momentum around it, maybe you just change one eating habit or one lifestyle habit, where you will find yourself a year from now is a very different place. And if I could get sober at 31 and change my diet and my lifestyle at 40 and do the things that I've done into my 50s, I really believe that anybody is capable of significant positive change in their life. I think we're all sitting atop mountains of untapped potential, and I just encourage people to understand that you have more inside of you, more within you to express, and we need everybody to be their healthiest, most fully actualized, self-expressed self. Like, we need all of your voices in their most fullest expression, and that is within all of our capability to manifest.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Rich. Thank you, really, from the bottom of my heart.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me, AJ. I love you. It's always a pleasure to see your smiling face and try to, by osmosis, take in some of your positive energy.
Thank you. And thanks all of you for watching episode 1000 of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow for episode 1001.
All right.
Hey everyone, and
Okay.
welcome to a
I'm back and I'm live. This always happens to me.
And this is
and
where I
I-
introduce you
I
to
don't
amazing
know how to
people like
stop
you who are doing great
This
things in the
always
world that I think you
happens.
should know about.
Hold on.
I started broadcasting this show
I gotta
live
stop
and
this.
daily at least one.
There we go. All right, here I am. This is really me. I'm really live. I was there the whole time. Do you know I've never watched my own show? It's pretty good. I want to introduce the contest to you, and thank you all for your super chats. I usually ding a bell, but it turned out I couldn't monitor the chat while I was watching, or you would have seen a smaller Rich. Wasn't he fabulous? Fabulous human being. I thought it was wonderful. I do want to thank the people that make this show possible, mainly you, the viewer. I've had so many wonderful guests. I wish I could thank them all personally. I thank them afterwards by giving them 2 free bottles of vinegar, but I wish I could thank them all right now. But it really, without you, the viewer, there would be really no reason for me to do a show. But there are people that you don't know behind the scenes that make it possible. First, we have the executive producer, Bailey, who sits on my lap for almost every show. Then, of course, we have my wonderful husband, Charles, who makes sure the technology works, which the other day with Dr. McDougall, it didn't work like 4 times and he was so patient. I was like so nervous, but it mostly works. And then we have 2 people you don't know, but if you email us, you may hear from them. We have Morgan and Linda, and they really help us a lot behind the scenes because, believe it or not, just little old me, we get so many emails every day. It's just overwhelming and we couldn't do it without them. So thank you, Morgan. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Bailey. Thank you to all my wonderful guests and viewers. And now I will tell you about the contest. So the NutraMilk machine, I can't lift the whole thing up here because I've got Bailey on my lap. Yes, there's other machines that can make plant milk. Vitamix can do it. But what's different about the NutraMilk is it's 0 waste. So in other words, when you buy plant milk in a box, it's basically almond water, cashew water. That's why it's only 30 calories. But when you make it in the NutraMilk, it's a whole food. And so you don't have the pulp left over like you do in some of these other machines where you're throwing out basically the most nutritious part. But it's really cool for making nut butter. Charles eats 2 peanut butter sandwiches every day for lunch, and it's so much cheaper to make the peanut butter and don't have the plastic, and it takes like a minute. Just check the YouTubes out. But as long as you live in the United States or have a United States address, you're eligible to win the NutraMilk. Let me tell you how you do it. And it's a contest that's going to be for 10 days. So it's going to go until midnight, May 29th. So you'll have 10 days to enter. And again, if you're on my mailing list, it'll be easier because we'll email this out to you. I'll try to put this in the show notes as well, but I need a little bit of time to do that. But I'm just going to verbally tell you what it is to win the NutraMilk. Remember, please have a US address, because if you went outside of that, we can't ship it. They won't ship it. It's free inside the US, all of the US. So what you're going to need to do, and the address is Chef AJ Contest. It's my name plus the word contest at gmail.com. That's where you're going to send your entries. Only one entry per person. And we'll know because the entry is a video. So please don't submit a video if you will not let us use it, because that is what we're going to do. We're going to make a compilation with all these videos and make a special show with that. So the video must be 3 minutes long or shorter. It can be shorter, but if it goes 3 minutes and 1 second, we're not going to watch it. Because last time we did a contest to name my last book, I mean, my God, it took weeks to go through all the entries. I don't know if we'll get this many with video, but so 3 minutes or shorter, and you can do it with your phone. We tested it, it worked, and we sent it to the email. We made like little videos. So 1 video per person. And please know that if you don't want the video shared, then don't submit it, because that's the whole purpose. But here's what you have to do in the video. You need to tell us which episode, now there's been 1,000 of Chef AJ Live, which was your favorite, what you learned in that episode that affected your life, and why you want to win a NutraMilk machine. So again, I need a little time. This will be in the show notes, especially for people watching the replay. And we are sending it out to our mailing list tomorrow in a very comprehensive email. So please consider subscribing at chefaj.com. We don't send out a lot of emails, mostly who's on the show. 3 minutes or shorter, 1 entry per person, United States address, your favorite episode of all the 1,000th episodes of Chef AJ Live, why it was your favorite episode, what you learned that affected your life, and why you want to win a NutraMilk machine. So somebody's going to win it. It may as well be you. We do have another live show today at 2 p.m. Pacific time. We have Richard Hubbard. He used to weigh over 350 pounds, but through a plant-based diet, lost almost half his weight. And now he's an athlete and he's helping people to do the same. I'm sorry I couldn't respond in real time to the chat like I normally do today, but I promise I will catch up. And how do you sort back through my videos? Well, there's about 1,600 there. You just go to YouTube. So thanks so much. I don't want to keep you any longer. And thank you, Rich. If you are watching, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And thank you to all the wonderful guests I've had over the last 2 years and all the guests that I know that I'm going to have. And again, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you ever have a chance to watch live, please do so on YouTube, because we have hundreds of wonderful people. We call them the Zoomunity, and they're friends with each other, and they actually take role, and we worry about them when they're not there. Like, for example, where was Dr. Daryl Woodruff today? Take care, everybody. And I so much appreciate you.